clinic because this has gotten so bad I can't take it, right? So that's it, and I don't think there's really any actual distinction between the two.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
It's a very good question, yeah. I try to think to talk about, because every book has its own terminology set, so I try to think that, so when there's terminology questions, I may not have the answer, but yeah, by all means, because unfortunately when we're doing it in English, every source we go to is going to have kind of different, and sometimes it is something different, and the other book just didn't talk about it, and sometimes it's the same thing, and then they just have different labels. Great. It makes it easy, not. Other questions? Okay, so let's, I do apologize. I thought I did, but I don't seem to have time-stamped it, so I don't know where we are as far as this. As a matter of fact, let me just turn this back on real quick. This is embarrassing, but I'm just going to be honest. So I don't remember how far we got on liver fire. Did we just start?
We were beginning to talk about the symptoms of liver fire, and I think we talked about dizziness and vertigo.
Okay,
and I
cool.
think that's where we ended.
Cool. Thank you so much. All right. And then I try to remember to do the timestamp. And so that, yeah, whatever. All right. So let's move forward. Then we talked a little bit about dizziness and vertigo. Remember, dizziness, when it's in our books, what they're basically saying is kind of like fainting, right? Kind of like passing out, blacking out, you know, orthostatic hypotension, which everybody has had it, but maybe you've had it really bad sometime where you stood up, you're bent over or something, stood up real fast, you start to black out. And then that's called postural dizziness. Okay, so that's a good thing to get a sense in your own mind of dizziness. And all of these terms, I really recommend Google the definition. And, you know, bottom line is, you know, we take medical terminology, so we learn like biomedical terms, and, you know, I don't remember all of them, but then you learn a system of the prefixes and the suffixes, et cetera. And we have signs and symptoms in books, medical books, right? Chinese medicine medical books. And so they went to great effort to try to have medically accurate terminology, which is cool because, you know, we want to learn this and we want some consistency, right? But our patients, you know, most of them, they just have a colloquial idea, right? They just, you know, whatever, when somebody says dizzy. So part of doing intake, and I know this is not diagnosis, but I, you know, always want to put these points out there. Part of doing intake, what I need to know is not the words. What I need to, at my best ability, try to understand what is this person's experience. And it's my job to translate it from their experiential description into the medical terms. It's not their job. And it makes inquiry is going to be tough. And you start to learn things where your patients actually consistently have misconception of the actual medical meaning of some term. And so you'll start to pick it up with your own patient population of, I can't just ask you, do you have dizziness? If they're a medical person, they know what dizziness means, but they don't know if you really know, you know, right? And then, you know, non-medical people, I don't want to be condescending, right? I mean, most of my patients are smarter than me, but they may not know medical terminology. So it's not a checklist. And, you know, this is a problem with all those apps is they're based on medical terms, but the average person doesn't really know, you know, they know what they feel, but they're hard pressed to describe it and they don't know medical word. And then how do I take a feeling and then Google what's the word for when I feel like this? That's not very easy. You can Google what's the definition of dizziness, right? So you really, when you're doing inquiry, you start to learn, like, people will answer incorrectly to this word because most people don't really know what it means. And I need to learn to ask in a way and try to understand and, you know, paraphrase back to them and make sure, like, okay, so I just want to make sure I understand what your experience is. And then I know the word to put there, because once we say dizziness, it has meaning to us, right? It's telling me about something that's going on and connected to this symptom, that sign, this symptom, that symptom. Now I draw conclusions. So I got to be real careful of just, somebody said some word and then I assume that's accurate. Pain, whatever, but even with pain, and getting treated by May, then she wants me to describe the pain. And then there's a great experience of being reminded, like, okay, so this is what we do to our patients all the time. It's very reasonable. But then when you start describing pain, how do I put this experience into words? And what words can I apply to it, right? So, this permeates throughout your job as a diagnostician. Okay, so I want to, whenever I think of it, something like this dizziness, and then you need to look it up and be aware, and then try to start thinking about how am I going to actually ask real people, knowing that many of them don't know the word dizziness. And I've paraphrased it, and then people have said, you mean dizziness? I'm like, yeah, and then whatever. So, just be careful, but also understand you're a trained medical professional, and most of your patients are not. And it's tricky. I don't want to be condescending, but then also I don't want to just assume that they're going to use medical terms in a proper, another one just popped in my head, anorexia. You'll see it in a lot of the books, and that means you don't eat. But with anorexia nervosa, which is an eating disorder, then colloquially anorexia, most people would just say, oh, they're too skinny. They're anorexic. And that's like, okay, but that's not right. Okay, so we have to know the meanings of all these things. So get in the habit of look it up and make sure that you're like actually really clear what these words are. What is vertigo? What is dizziness? What is this? And then all the different kinds of pain, which we do more in diagnosis, but just it's a really important thing. You can imagine already, and you've probably seen things where communication in clinic, it's not cut and dry. It's not a checklist, and then you can just hand them a piece of paper and get accurate. They filled it out for you, and then like, all right, 3 minutes, and I've already diagnosed the patient. If only. Okay, so enough of that. Then here we are. One thing that I also want to point out is, I'm a visual learner. Everybody's visual partly, right? That's the KAV, VAK, those kind of learning models, right? So I'm primarily a visual learner. I always have been. I guess studies show that as we age, we become more and more reliant on visual learning. But still, some of you are more kinesthetic, some are more auditory, but whatever. So as a visual learner, then I made scribbly things like these overheads, and some of the benefits I get, I would color them in, with my daughters. They were really young at the time. And then also you start to see like, well, look at this, right? All the signs and symptoms are from the middle up, and most of them are up in the head. So you think back to Taiji Tu, right? This is why I went over it so many times with you last semester. And then we see the liver wind wood of the east on the left-hand side, and its job is shangfa. So this means like upbearing and effusion. Upbearing and effusion, like a tree or a plant and wood coming up and spreading out. Okay? And we need that. How do I get things down to go up to my head, which is where my sense organs are, right? I need that. But in pathology, this means that it's going up too hard, too fast. And then we see a lot of pathology. Your liver's in the middle of your body anatomically, but look at, and you want to see a lot of these things, right? Like some of them you see like, wow, a lot of the problems are actually in their legs. So even though we have organ, and a problem with the organ model is maybe I start to think that like I have heart blood stasis, and then I feel pain in my heart, right? And it's located there and whatever. But then we see a lot of them. So this is the organ network systems, and we really want to know the channel paths and also exterior, interior. Okay, so distending pain in the head. Okay, so distending pain in the head. And we've all had headaches, and they're not all the same, and they're not all in the same location. They don't feel the same. They're not triggered by the same stuff. They're not relieved by the same stuff. And so when somebody says, okay, maybe the reason they come to your clinic is they have headaches, and they might put names to it. I get migraines. Okay, so, I know a bunch of people that say they get migraines. What they got was not migraines, but they were intense headaches. You know, people just kind of say that. So again, be careful with what people say. But if they say they get headaches because of channel paths, because there's so many different kinds of headaches and causes of headaches, I want to know, where does it hurt? Okay, where does it hurt? And I ask them to show me with their hand, because I don't expect them to say, well, it's in the area of my parietal bone. Okay, so, you know, show me where it hurts. And then, you know, these slides, this is the liver channel. So liver headaches, pure and of themselves, are on the top of your head. And if you've never had a headache there, you might go like, top of the head, what? But trust me, there's all kinds of people get headaches. And what they'll say is it feels like somebody, you know, something fell and hit me on top of the head. And they'll get it right there. But a lot of them, it's on the side of the head, maybe one-sided. And it's intense, right? So when it comes to pain, what I look for, and again, it's not diagnosis class, but we got to start like weaving things together, right? So what I look for is that, generally speaking, things from excess problems, so liver fire is an excess condition, that's the evil chi, right? So those things tend to come on with acute onset, like I didn't have this headache, then I got in and I had to go and have this no fun meeting with my corporate superiors, and you know, wow, my God, right? And then I come out of it and now bam, bam, I've got this pounding headache. Okay, that should trigger me to think, okay, excess. So they usually have acute onset, and they usually go away pretty quick too when they go away. Whereas deficiency pain, deficiency headaches, usually they're kind of maybe, you know, most of us, if you stop and just check in with your head, like from your shoulders up, neck and head, you probably, if you're quiet and you think, you can say like, wow, yeah, actually, I got a tiny little bit of pain right here. I didn't notice it. So deficiency pain, a lot of times it's there, and then it gets stronger because of the things that make you more deficient. Like I worked 80 hours last week, so now I'm really run down. I didn't sleep that great, and now my headache is worse. Okay, so what's the onset? Acute onset, first thing I think of is excess. Insidious onset, first thing I think of is deficiency. And people are mixes, but we got to learn rules step by step, right? So, and then what's the nature of the pain? So I want to know the location, please show me. And then I know channel paths. Okay, and then what kind of pain is it? Which people, you know, again, it's not a checklist, so they're not going to just give you like the perfect info that you want to know. But some people will say it feels like my head's going to explode. Okay, so that feels like something on the inside pushing out, and that's distending pain. So it doesn't mean that if someone says, oh, I feel like my head's going to explode, okay, we're done, that's liver fire. It doesn't work like that. But, you know, step-by-step pieces in a puzzle, it really helps. And I would be suspicious of liver fire, or we'll see like hyperactive essential liver young or something like that. Okay, so where does it hurt? Tell me about the onset, right? Oh, well, just, you know, guy cut me off in traffic. I got upset, honked my horn, and my head started to hurt or something. And then the nature of the pain, to the degree they can, right? Is it intense pain, or is it kind of like just, yeah, it's there? Okay. Is it like sharp stabbing kind of pain, or is it a dull, achy sensation? And then on top of that, right, so maybe this would be an intense pain that feels like my head's going to explode. All right. And then some people actually will say, like, I feel this distension, right? People will say that, but most of them, they won't, because they didn't study enough in acupuncture school, I guess. So I want to know, like, okay, where does it hurt? Please show me. About the onset, and then also palliative, like what do you find that seems to make these go away, what helps them, and then the nature of the pain. So this one, I would expect they're going to say distending pain. They may say it's just my whole head hurts. Maybe they're more aware on top of their head or on the side of their head. And why on the side of their head? Because the gallbladder channel. And as a matter of fact, if we you know, if we look at these things in the head, we've got the distending pain, and please show me where does it hurt. dizziness, vertigo, then red eyes. Well, that makes sense to us because it's the portal of the liver. But also remember that the gallbladder channel goes to the eyes multiple times. Okay. And then you see tinnitus or tinnitus. I don't know. I hear people pronounce it both ways. I have no idea. But I'm probably going to say tinnitus. So one with tinnitus is the same kind of thing. Excess or deficiency, right? Is it sudden onset or is it just kind of always there and when you're tired it's worse, right? And then is it really, really loud or is it just some background noise that won't go away? And everything's a spectrum, right? I just framed this in an A-B kind of setup, but everything's on a spectrum. So when it's excess, like liver fire, we see in some Chinese literature, older stuff, that they'll say like, it sounds like the tolling of a great bell. This kind of tinnitus, right? Like the tolling of a great bell. It's not like one says about deficiency, it's like cicadas singing in the distance. So if you ever live where they have cicadas, yeah, they'd have to be pretty far away, but it's just kind of like that off in the distance that doesn't go away. And then this one, like the tolling of a great bell. So bang, and then, and then maybe when they get upset, their ears start ringing, right? They're pissed off. They want to, start yelling at somebody and whatever. And now my head hurts and I feel dizzy and I get this ringing in my ears or one ear. So then the question comes, why in the ear? Okay, I understand the eye, it's a portal of the liver, but why in the ear? Turn the speaker back on so we can get the brilliant response from students. Why is it going to appear in the ear? Take your time, I'll drink tea while you guys muse who gets to step up with the correct answer.
I don't know if it's a correct answer, but I'll take a gander. This is the gallbladder channel right near the ear?
Not only is it near the ear, but it's one of two channels that goes into the ear.
There it is.
Yeah. So what's the other channel that goes into the ear?
Kidney?
It does not. Yeah, that's a great guess because it is. So like we look at the patient's got a problem and they got, oh, this problem in my ear. So what's my checklist? Okay, kidney, because it's the sense organ of the kidney.
How about is it the Sanjiao?
Exactly. Yeah. So wood, because the gallbladder channel goes there. And then Shaoyang, because hand and foot Shaoyang, hand is Sanjiao and foot is gallbladder. They go into the ear. So when I'm learning these things, and this is not acupuncture channel class or anything like that, so don't worry, I only digress for a second. But you learn the path like, okay, it starts here, goes here, goes here, goes here, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and you need to know that. But then you also want to reverse it and teach yourself what channels go to the eyes, what channels go to the inner canthus, what channels go to the outer canthus, what are in the middle, what channels go to the ear. Kidney channel doesn't go to the ear, but the kidney is connected because that's its sense organ, right? These two channels go into the ear. So as you're learning these things, because that's what's going to happen, you're going to solve a problem with the ear, and then you have to have, based on our laws of the universe, okay, so ear, what's it telling me? So my first suspicion might be kidneys because of that, and then the two channels that go into the ear from the outside, and then one channel connects to the ear from the inside. Who knows?
The kidney channel?
That didn't come across clearly.
Is that the kidney channel?
Kidney channel does not go to the ears. Kidney channel goes to the root of the tongue and meets the heart channel there. Heart, kidneys meet each other many places. Yeah, but it doesn't go to the ear, interestingly enough, nor does the bladder.
Is that large intestine?
Give me more information. That's really good knowledge. So now I step up my question. Yes, but not the primary channel, right?
No, it's oh my gosh. I just have the picture in my head. I don't have the channel, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. That's good because most people won't actually think of this, and it probably passed by because it's like the second channel you learned, and then you're like studying new channels, and then maybe it passed by. So all the channels have the primary channel, then they have luo mai, right? The luo connecting channel, which, you know, they usually don't really go very far, but some do. And then they have channel divergences or divergent channels. And, you know, Westerners like to argue, and I don't know. But the large intestine divergent channel bifurcates, and one of them goes into the ear. I know, right? Which is interesting because we know that, you know, if we think of the nose as being metal, right? Lung, but then also large intestine. And then we know, I don't know and like people named all kinds of body parts after themselves. So the eustachian tube or something. And then now they have more just anatomical name for everything, which is a lot better. But I don't remember where it says, but there's a tube that connects your nose sinuses to your ear. So that's very interesting that ancient people, without the benefit of that kind of dissection knowledge, they still recognize metal's connection to the ears. So the large intestine divergent channel. So the first thing I would think of in excess or deficiency is deficiency kidney, excess shaoyang, which then that brings also their partners. So the gallbladder brings liver possibilities, and the sanjiao brings pericardium possibilities. Okay, and then large intestine and metal, and you know. So does that make sense? So the channel paths, you really want to know them frontwards and backwards. Do we have a question here? Someone's mic is on, I heard. Nope. Okay, cool. So here's the deal. The liver is yin and fire is yang. So any yin organ network system has very limited capacity to carry yang pathogens. They do. It's obvious it does, but it starts to spread out. And I think I talked about this last week, maybe a week before, maybe every day. So a lot of times what we're going to see, especially with the yin organ network systems with yang pathogens, is we're going to see manifestation on this biaoli, exterior-interior paired organ network system. So with the liver problem, especially when we transform heat, the depressive heat, or we have liver fire, or when we see hyperactive ascension of liver yang, then we'll see a lot of manifestations on its pair gallbladder. Once we get with gallbladder, then in real people, you might think, okay, so sanjiao, what about that channel pathway? And how do I construct treatments, right? There's specialty points, but then when I'm thinking of channels, okay, so then I want to think, you know, first with this, I would think liver channel points. What kind of points would I use to treat liver fire? I'm on the liver channel, so how am I going to pick points? There's 2 points that should come to your mind real quickly.
Some of us haven't taken fully acupuncture 2 yet. But
yeah, but
maybe
instead of just rote
liver 3?
memorization, which I understand that, but just conceptually, because I think I talked about it last week too.
Okay.
Liver 2,
And why liver 2?
because it is fire point.
So I'm going to do draining or reducing technique on liver 2 because it's a fire point. Okay, and then what would be another point? Same
Water.
thinking.
Water point.
The water point, right? So does that make sense? And then Darla also pointed out a really good thing because it's more advanced when you study treatment of conditions with acupuncture, and then they give you these point prescriptions. So I do this one to help your thinking and coalesce the 5 elements stuff, but then also when you start studying, a lot of times it just seems so random. Like, where the heck do they get these point combinations? But there's actually a total method to that madness. Okay, so, you know, some things are going to be easier to make the connection, like, oh, look at this, and then liver 2, fire point, drain it, right? Draining technique, drain fire. And then also, because it's all in the head, liver 2 is on your foot. And I really don't know, so this might make no connection to anybody, but when I was a kid, you know, and I lived back east on these army bases, and then they have lightning storms a lot more than we have them here. But then all the houses back then had lightning rods. So if they had a chimney, then sticking up from the chimney was a rod that would stick up there, and then it was grounded literally into the ground, because you don't want lightning hitting your roof. It would hit this lightning rod, and then that would ground it into the earth itself. So for me, that knowledge and experience, and having seen lightning hit people's lightning rods in storms, then that, like, okay, so a lot of times when the problem is up in the head, you might treat locally. You might treat locally, sure. But then you also never want to forget, okay, like a lightning rod, I want to ground this problem, because the problem is it's rushing up to their head. So part of what I want to do is ground it, right? And then you use their feet. And you want to practice with your palpation on people's feet, you know, and I'm not a fan of feet, but, you know, that's where a lot of power is on their feet. So you need to practice palpating people's feet because of bony markers. Where's the needle going to go in? And you also need to practice your needling skills, because a lot of people, if you start palpating along particularly gallbladder channel, because all the crap we're carrying in our lives these days, you'll see a lot of people, it's exquisitely painful, and now you want to stick a needle in it. So you need to work on your skills, right? I need to work on my skills. That's not like, right? We all need to, because those are powerful point, but powerful also, they can hurt like the dickens, right? So you want to have skill. And I just give you this pointer. You want to practice with skill for confidence, because the more that you're hesitant and you don't want to hurt them. But sorry. I have my clinic phone forwarding to that. I wasn't expecting. Sorry. Where the heck am I? So yeah, you need to practice your needling skills and be confident, because when you've got it, you want that needle in. The more that you're like hesitant, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to hurt them. I'm afraid I'm going to hurt them. You are going to hurt them by being afraid you're going to hurt them. So, you know, just from, there's a generational words of wisdom. Foot points, very powerful, very useful, very helpful, but be careful. Just have somebody firmly rub your feet after class, and then you'll find, like a lot of places, it hurts like crazy. You may not even know it now until they start pressing it, and now you want to stick a needle in it. So practice, right? Palpation, find the points, and then practice needling on inanimate objects, and then practice needling the foot points. Needle on yourself, okay? Okay, that's the end of that. So, okay, does that make sense though? So a lot of times when I have a problem like this, I'm going to be looking at other channels too. So, okay, maybe fire point on a liver channel, but then also I want to use gallbladder points on the foot, right? On the foot. So because it's manifesting in a gallbladder channel, I'll get better results by using both channels. And like a lightning rod, I want to pull the problem down out of your head. Okay, it's rushing up to your head. I want to pull it down. And we'll see the same thing with hyperactive ascension of liver yang. Okay, so then the tinnitus, you know, think about the different qualities of tinnitus, like waves crashing on the shore. That's another one from pre-modern text, like the tolling of a great bell. So it's loud, right? It's loud, and they probably feel pressure. A lot of times when people have this, maybe it's an emotional trigger. You know, now I feel this, you know, headache going boom, 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 and I feel it in my head, like distending pain. I feel pressure in my ear, and that sound is coming in, and maybe it's just one-sided. One-sided is very common, and the headache is also very common, going to be one-sided or on top or in the back, Now, I can understand why this headache might be on top. I can understand why it might be on the side of the head, right? Like the temporal bone, parietal bone, that area, right? Why might this intense headache be in the back of their head?
Are there sinuses back in the back of the head?
Yeah. Just for channel, yeah, I realize, especially the way I worded that question, but just based on channels, why might this intense headache, and then you say, oh, is it on top of your head? No, I never get that. Oh, okay. So it's on the side of your head? No, a friend of mine, but no, for me, it's always back here. And you're like, is that saying I'm on the wrong path, or is that like, it could still be?
So is it gallbladder?
And why?
Because the gallbladder channel moves around the back a little bit.
Yeah, so if you know the gallbladder, then along the back, right, then you have gallbladder points on the back, right? And then you have that famous gallbladder point. This because I'm old, but Star Trek and Spock used to have this neck pinch that he'd squeeze people basically on the gallbladder point on their trap, right? And then people would faint.
Yeah.
And for grown-ups, right, then you squeeze them. I bet every one of us, if we came and palpated, it would hurt there, right? And that's because of wood and the things like that. And then also, anatomically, just the bad posture and things like that. So there's that point on your trap, right? And then there's a point on the back of your head. So then the gallbladder channel is connecting from the back of your head to your shoulder. And so a lot of times your headache is in the back, and your headache's actually in your shoulder or your scapula. You just feel it in the back of your head. Okay?
Right.
So good. All right. So again, could be top, and books will say liver headaches are on top. Okay. And then could be on the side because of gallbladder, and it could be in the back also because of gallbladder channel.
Professor?
So we've got this distending pain, like my head's going to explode, intense pain, right? If they say my head's going to explode, that's not some kind of mild headache, right? That doesn't feel like my head's going to explode. Dizziness and vertigo, red because of heat, the tinnitus, so it's loud, and then that does connect to wood. And then bitter taste, what do I know? Heat. Right? And in this case, liver fire, with its connection to the gallbladder, then it steams the bile in the gallbladder, which becomes a vapor and then condenses when it meets the cool air in your mouth, and then you taste it. And then you can also imagine with all this heat and everything rising up that their mouth is dry. And then we always like, if their mouth is dry, you might see it when you see, can I see your tongue, please? So we're not studying tongue yet, but these are simple. We can just get beginner stuff. So here they have liver fire. Can I see your tongue? What am I expecting? Most basic. Red tongue, right? Red means heat. You got red eyes, red complexion. It doesn't say here, but they have red in their complexion, right? Because there's heat coming up. And then can I see your tongue? I expect it to be red. And then what do I expect to see on the coating? Dry, right? And then yellow. If you remember, we said all yellow excretions are ascribed to heat. So then the standard textbook for heat is yellow. So then you see their tongue, it's red, probably very red. And then they have like dry tongue. And then I'm not the least bit surprised. If it was really wet, I would be like, I wonder why that's happening. Yeah. And when we go over a diagnosis course, that question is the question I believe we should always be asking ourselves in our clinic interaction with our patient. When they tell us something, you should have a mindset of, I wonder what's making that happen. I wonder why that's happening. And then thinking it through in Chinese medicine terms. Okay, then, if we go to the what's lined up at the middle, more because the heart and our emotions, or the liver and the emotions of that, easy anger, great anger, / rage. Okay, so, and then if you remember, one of the causes of liver depression is anger. And the more you get liver depression, the more easily you get angry. And the more that you indulge your anger, then the hotter your thing. Now you got liver chi transform heat, or liver depression, depressive heat in other books, right? And then maybe through stressful times, then this person has crossed another threshold. It's very easy for them to get angry. As a matter of fact, it's hard for them to get out of anger, and they're just going off on people. In a long time ago, in a previous lifetime, I worked at a corporation, and there was a guy, and we called him Mr. Ballistic. Just, like if a twig snapped, sometimes this guy would go off, right? He would go off. And so now I regret it, but that was how we coped with having to deal with this guy. You never know. And then boom, it's like, oh my God. So Mr. Ballistic. Now I know better. Now I have Chinese medicine understanding of it. It's just part of his pathology. But when you don't know, then just like the guy's a jerk. Okay. So really easy anger, great anger. And that anger is just like trying to put out fire with gasoline. It's achieving the opposite. It's achieving the opposite. So, we don't want to repress our emotions because that's unfulfilled desires. Things, the middle path, right? And that's why I said to you guys before, and I will say again, stuff that really pisses you off, like maybe political stuff or this or that or whatever. And it's bad for you and you don't want to indulge in it. And, that's just advice because I certainly had my time when I let things bother me a lot. So, So, and then you see the burning pain in the rib side. Now I have had people say that. Like there was a time for a while where I was like, man, I don't know where they get that. Nobody ever says that. And then as soon as I said that, then I'm blessed by the universe. Then I started getting people that would say it. So we had the ribside distension, right? The stuck ribside distension with liver qi stagnation. Okay. And then liver qi transform heat, worsening liver qi. Then it can be distending pain. And then the more that there's like fire feeling, then the more that they might say burning pain. They might not have it. This isn't a checklist and they have to have all of it. But these are the kind of things I want to know about. Do they have something, on the rib side? And again, that's the gallbladder channel. And so then we see this problem in the liver organ network system, like osmosis moving into its yang paired system and manifesting a lot of things on that channel. Okay, so here we have liver fire flaring. Once I say this, it's not the same as just liver qi, stagnation, transform heat, and whatever, because with liver qi, stagnation, transform heat, we're going to soothe the liver, move the qi, clear depressive heat or transformative heat, okay? When we say liver fire, it's completely different. We say drain liver fire. And then we are announcing that our intention is going to be very, very, very different. And I don't know, you guys are not in herbs 1 because clear heat is in herbs 1. But so there's an herb that you learn in one of the sub-chapters of clear heat called long dan cao, and it's like dragon gallbladder herb is what it means. And it's very limited application. And it drains liver fire, drains liver gallbladder damp heat, long dan cao. So, it's bitter and cold and you don't want to give it out willy-nilly. So you give it when it's fire. And then there's going to be a formula you're going to learn, but it's called long dan xie gan tang. So it's the, that herb, long dan cao, xie gan means drain the liver, right? So then that's the formula that you would be starting to modify when you said somebody had liver fire. That's textbook formula, state board exam, national exam, everything. You'll learn it. Just when you hear about it now, you say like, yeah, I heard about this before. And maybe you'll see some of your teachers in clinic using it. Okay, so drain liver fire. Drain liver fire. And then just to finish up here, in a previous slide with the liver depression, transformative heat, depressive heat, and then it said like early menstruation or, excessive menstruation. And this is going to be a tricky thing that you have to make a clinical decision that, what are the triggers that tell me something's more than just heat? I'm going to call it fire. And for me, when somebody has bleeding because of heat, this pushes me right to the precipice, if not across it, that I'm going to call it fire and deal with it as fire. You know, I have heat. I was born in a excess minister fire year, so I have all kinds of heat tendencies, but it doesn't make my nose bleed, right? So if my nose started bleeding, that's not my garden variety heat that I deal with all the time. That is cross the threshold. Okay. And then, you know, you might drain liver fire for a week and then you come back and they're not cured, but then you say like, okay, I'm not going to call this fire anymore. Now I'm just going to call it depressive heat, and I'm going to change my approach for the next week. Because I don't want to use overly harsh, overly strong treatments because they have benefits, but then they also have potential side effects. Okay. So this is just my opinion. It's not unique to me. There's a bunch of people, and you'll see that you'll have colleagues discussing this and how do they address it. And it also depends on how bad is the bleeding. How bad is the bleeding? But if the heat is causing bleeding, remember that one of the key things is where's the evil? Location, location, location. So if heat is causing early menstruation or more profuse, right? So your patient says like, yeah, since this problem happened, also my periods have been kind of excessive flow. Okay. Where is the heat?
Liver? Liver channel?
Yeah. Can't say no to that, but I want more. Can't say no to that. Okay, so if the heat is making someone bleed, that means the heat is in the blood, right? So we got 3 levels. One way to look at people is 3 dynamic systems: chi dynamic, the fluid dynamic, and the blood dynamic. If I have lots and lots of heat in my chi dynamic, I have a big fever and I'm thirsty and I'm sweating and la, 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 but it's not going to make me bleed. And then if I start get even subcutaneous bleeding or whatever, but if it starts to manifest, that means the heat is in the blood. And when you study heat clearing, you'll notice there's a subchapter called Clear Heat, Cool the Blood. And that is pointing me in that direction, right? So then, okay, so there's heat and it's liver, and it connects because liver treasures blood. So probably that was a good answer because when, okay, so liver fire, so the liver is really hot and then it treasures blood. So what's going to happen to the blood inside the liver? It's going to become hot. Okay. And what other organ stores blood in the human body? What other organ treasures blood or stores blood? It's extraordinary.
The uterus?
Exactly. Right. So then you can kind of see that. So, you know, that's why liver is correct, but it's incomplete. So liver is hot. Then the blood that it stores is hot. And then any organ that also stores the blood is going to get hot with this heated up blood. Does that make sense? So then that would explain to us very easily why this person that's going through liver severe heat or liver fire, it starts to manifest in like menstrual bleeding. That doesn't mean everybody with early menstruation or excessive flow or anything that's the diagnosis. That's one of them. That's one of them. Okay. And there's always excess and deficiency. So just, you know, little bit of, and then also for me, if that was it, then I'm probably at least for the first week going to drain liver fire. And then you might add to your treatment principle, stop bleeding. So that's why I didn't really talk about it when it was on this slide for liver depression, depressive heat, or transformative heat. And it's not on here, it's not on here because standard textbooks don't put it there. So standard textbook answer is what you see in the books, okay? And then, you know, clinical opinions, and again, it's not unique to me, but people will disagree with each other, right? And then, but if I saw that, I would tend to initially say, okay, they have liver fire, okay? All right, well, the speaker's still on, so let's, are there questions? Otherwise, we kind of take a break, and then we're going to do a bunch of related patterns and go through like maybe, I don't know, 6 patterns pretty quickly because they're all related very much. So any questions about this?
Are we going to talk more about the liver depression, depressive heat?
We talked about that last week.
Okay. And the main differences, what was the main difference between them? Because I took some notes on they have different treatments and different herbs that you would use. But I guess I forgot like the main diagnostic differences.
Okay, so I'm not trying to avoid your specific question, but this is like teaching opportunity. Because we're going to keep running into this kind of like when you're studying and it's new to you, and then you're going to look, and I'll use this one, and then also liver fire and heart fire. And then we see a bunch of overlap. And then we get this curiosity like, okay, how the heck am I supposed to, just ask the patient, is it your heart or your liver? Because right? So what I need to do, I wish I'd just write this on the board, but what I need to do is I'll start to see stuff where there seems like a lot of maybe overlap of signs and symptoms, a lot of similarity. So what I want to do is I did it on paper, and I would put the comparisons on a piece of paper with 3 columns. And then in the middle column, everything that they both manifest goes in the middle column. And then in the left-hand column, for example, maybe I would put liver fire and what is unique to liver fire. And then in the far right column, I'd put heart fire, what's unique to heart fire, so that I can really get a sense of what's the same, what's different. Okay, as far as manifestation, right? And then, it's by studying my disease causes, disease mechanisms, right, which is rooted in all the statements of fact and reviewing those little tiny chapters we went over real quickly last semester. This is how I get a sense on one level of quote unquote, what's the difference? What's the difference? So I want to look at and do the comparison of, okay, so here we have liver depression, depressive heat or transformative heat. Somebody's making noise on their microphone. Okay, thank you. Sorry. So yeah, you can see where this is more spread out, the signs and symptoms, and then you want to do like A/B comparison between them so that I can start to say, okay, here's what they both have in common, even though the severity of the heat is part of the subjective decision-making process in your clinic. So, we get fancy phrase, the preponderance and severity of signs and symptoms. Preponderance and severity of signs and symptoms. So, yeah, you want to do like a listing and do comparison. And then also like disease causes, like the main cause of this thing is always going to be enduring or worsening liver qi stagnation with somebody who has some propensity to transform heat. So they have a warmer to a hot constitution versus somebody with a really cold deficient constitution. Okay, then we put those by each other, and then we'll see like, okay, so dry mouth / thirst, those are kind of different words, but in clinic, how am I going to know? Red eyes, red complexion, bitter taste in the mouth. So there's overlap. And then there's the things that are not the same in each one. And this is going to happen over and over again. So this is the process of how you want to do the comparison so you feel real comfortable. And of course, we're learning this because I want to use it in clinic to help people. But, I got to get through school. So in testing, I want to know like what's the same, what's unique, because when let's say there's a case study. And when you write a case study on an exam, of course, you're going to present something. And a lot of what they say, well, it could be liver fire, could be heart fire. And then there's going to be a few things that are supposed to signal to someone that, oh, because they have this and this, that's heart, or because they have this and that, that means it's liver. So this is, the initial is just the basics of what are the signs and symptoms, and then doing these comparative analysis is really how you'll be a lot more comfortable with it, have a lot more clarity. Yeah. So that's my response and suggestion for that. And it's going to happen a bunch of times. Okay. Now I see written questions. Does liver fire always start as stagnation? No, it does not always start as stagnation. No, it does not. That's probably the most common pathway that I see in my own patient population over the years. But we also have an idea always that you can have external invasion of heat, right? So this external invasion. And then also, well, let's take somebody with a really hot constitution, right? Live a really hot constitution, right? So, very young constitution. And then something really big happens. They don't have to go through like dominoes, those things people do with dominoes, and it doesn't have to be like that. They can just go from A to fire like that, right? Because of a combination of things where, work is getting really, really bad, and then something really bad happens and it just gets them. And maybe they go out and drink and whatever, and then flame on. So no, it does not have to. Yeah. And I'm sorry if I was unclear about that. And then it should seem like acute conditions. Well, okay, so this is to Jessica that she's asking about acute. It's an acute condition. I think in terms of 80-20 rule all the time. So I would say that 80%, and that's why I like liver fire flaring or liver fire blazing, because usually they've crossed a threshold, which doesn't actually address what their steady state experience was. But, they cross a threshold and now they're in this flare up that I want to get them out of. Okay. So you can think of people with certain skin problems, they get a flare up, and then what they want most of all is one, stop it. Okay. And then if you can get me out of this flare up, curing me of my eczema is one thing, but one, I want to stop the spread. And then if we can clear up this flare up, that'd be great. And then, long-term treatment, I think we might get people into very long-term remission, but a lot of times when people achieve you stopped it and it cleared up, and then they'll stop coming because there's like a fatigue to the whole thing. Okay, and then what was the rest of it? Acute. So yeah, they can be in it longer than what I might call acute. They can be in it longer than that. Sometimes how does see the patients. I'm not clear on the last one, right? So, anger is anger, and then what anger can do to me. And then, there's anger that I just got annoyed because, if you're dealing with kids, then sometimes kids get grouchy, and then, you've only got so much bandwidth for it, and then you might get annoyed, but you're not going to rage on the little kid, right? And then co-workers or whatever. So yeah, all of these things are very dynamic, right? They're all very dynamic. We say the word anger, and then we've all got a rainbow assortment of experiences of being angry, but the book just says angry, right? So this is a lot of judgment that you have to bring your wisdom of human condition and life experiences, and you have to bring it with you and kind of get a sense, and also be flexible with yourself that, unless I follow this person around, which is called stalking, and don't do it. But if you don't follow them around, you don't really know how easily they're triggered, what is triggering them. You're like, well, any normal person would get mad about that, right? Or, yeah, man, you're really getting pissed about things that, wow. Okay. So, and then how angry they get. So you got to feel your way through and tap into your life experiences and your knowledge of people and human condition. And we learn all these static words as beginners, which that's great, but then we have to keep in mind that I'm still going to have to kind of process it and come to some decisions and be okay that maybe I missed the mark a little bit. You're not going to think anger is joy, right? I'm not going to miss it like that, but you might think that they're kind of overdoing their anger. And if you saw it, it's not really that bad, but still they're angry a lot. Okay. So yeah, not so easy. Yeah, I don't know. That's, I guess, my response. So other questions?
So as we were talking that we can use fire point and water point to clear the heat.
Mm-hmm.
Is just putting the needle into that, or there are some technique to use?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So you learn, if you're studying CAM in your acupuncture classes, so they say reinforcing and reducing, right? So there's just two categories. So reinforcing, supplementing technique, and then reducing is like draining technique. So in that condition, I would go to the fire point and I would use draining because I'm draining fire. And then if I use water for whatever on this channel because of, right? So I use water, then you would reinforce water to bring water because water normally controls fire. So I'm not draining out water. I want to stimulate water to control fire, bring back the normal balance. So I might drain fire, but I don't want to overly do it because you need your fire, right? And then some degree, I would stimulate some water point maybe to help try to reinstate the normal controlling relationship. And then a little bit this way, a little bit that way. Don't overdo too much of like just drain. And then when they're leaving your clinic, you can see on their face, they look really drained. And you're like, yeah, maybe I overdid it, right? So you don't want to use too many needles and you don't want to use too strong of a technique, and et cetera, et cetera. Did that help?
yes, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, or are we going to take a break? Okay. So let's take, 10 minutes? Or 8 minutes now because I talked too much. So how about 10:40? We're going to start up again.